All right, what is up, everybody? We are back once again. Today, joined with the legendary OXDiff, founder previously from Stripe, which I want to get into because I think there's a ton there to talk about, and I'm very interested, especially with Stripe in headlines today. But previously, past previously, today now the co-founder behind the GLHFers and Play Gigaverse, which is on Abstract. It's powered by Proof of Play. It's a role-playing game that is blockchain powered. I definitely don't do it justice with the intro. I think you could do a much better job here. But Dith, I'm so glad to have you on the show. Glad to get you for an hour and just chat through things. How are you doing today, my friend?
Yeah, doing awesome. Yeah, thanks so much for having us on, man. And yeah, and for navigating the intro there. Appreciate you.
I got to get better at it. The intros are hard. They're very hard.
Everyone does such like crazy, weird, like nonsensical backgrounds and like masala of shit, right?
I was, I tried to find what your pets' names were, and yeah, I thought I can only go so deep. But look, you come from Stripe. It's interesting. I feel like we see a lot of very smart and like leaders in this space coming from Stripe. Before we get into everything else, I'm just curious, like, what is your story from Stripe to where you are today? I'm very curious by that.
So I was always a startup guy. I caught the bug really when I was still in university. Launched my first startup. I was like 20, 21 years old. And it was at that point I knew like, hey, I'm going to have to, like, I love this shit. I'm going to have to like try to build my own thing, run startups. So Stripe was a little bit of an outlier for me. The way I ended up at Stripe was I had just moved to London. I'd exited a startup of like a Web2 startup of mine, moved to London, COVID hit, and I was like in a really good spot. I had like disposable income. I just met my girlfriend, who's now my wife, and we were kind of in a little bubble in London. And after like a year, I was like, I should probably do something here. Should I start another startup? I didn't have any ideas that I felt super passionate about, which is like such a privileged problem to have.
It is.
And at the same time, I was like, well, I've built a lot of early stage startups. I want to learn how the late growth stage startups look from the inside. I'm super fucking picky. There was like a handful of companies that I was interested in, right? All very sort of elite. Like Stripe was obviously on the list. Palantir was on the list. Like a bunch of like, there's like 3 or 4 like really weird, but just like really dope companies. And anyway, I didn't know anyone there at the time. So I literally just like what every normie does, right? And like sends in an application. Anyway, I ended up getting a job at Stripe that way. And I led a go-to-market team. I set up like a bunch of our partnership programs. I was also part of this like period of hyper growth at Stripe where when I joined the London office, there were 50 of us, and within a year, there were 250 of us. And so I was there for just a little over 2 years. Anyway, Stripe was really the catalyst for me to end up full-time in crypto. I always thought crypto was like pretty cool. It was like really interesting. It was this kind of like punk rock thing. But when you join Stripe, they hire a lot of people who don't come from payments purposely because they can teach you like a chunk of what you need to know about payments in your first 2-3 months.
Right.
And they have incredible onboarding materials and like immerse you in the culture, and like you get up to speed pretty quickly.
Right.
But ironically, it was through that process of learning how these like TradFi payments work that I was like, this shit's crazy. Like, why are there so many middlemen, all these fees? How is like this party adding value? Why is that bank charging so much for this thing and it takes ages? So I got pulled on crypto from an actual belief in the technology,
right.
Not from a like
seeing what didn't work in the traditional finance world and being like, I see a better way for it.
Exactly. And then, of course, like, for you to get like fully sucked into the world of crypto, it can't purely be academic. You need to have skin in the game. You need to start aping shit. and that happened for me in 2021. Like tokens were always kind of like interesting, but I had way more fun with NFTs. I guess it's just like I'm more of a visual person, so I like the silly JPEGs,
Yeah.
and that's really what started the clock for me to like end up leaving Stripe, because I was like, yeah, these NFTs are, and plus, look, 2021 NFTs was like absolute mania, right?
It was insane.
Um,
If and for the people that weren't there, like I don't think I felt it. Like maybe a little bit of the meme coin, but it wasn't. It's we still haven't hit that like euphoria that we were in early 21, 22.
yeah, exactly. So NFTs were like the thing for me, and because I'm also, as I say, like I've spent my whole life in and around startups, so naturally sort of prone to like connecting with other builders. I ended up in a community called Chain Runners, which was very like tech and VC adjacent. Like it was full of, it's basically what all the VCs were rocking, right? Like,
Yep.
and also founders like Figma IPO'd recently. Well, Dylan, the founder of Figma, up until recently, or maybe even still, he was like rocking a chain runner for like years.
Yep, I remember.
So chain runners as a community was just like kind of where like a lot of people who worked in tech or VC ended up, and that's where I met like a lot of friends who were all like tinkering and building and shipping like stuff. So I ended up helping a bunch, and it was through that process that I ended up like finding my first full-time like crypto job.
And what was your first time full like crypto job? Was it like founding what you're doing today, or was it something adjacent?
No, not at all. So you mentioned Proof of Play. Like on our website, you see Powered by Proof of Play,
Yeah.
and that's the company that I joined. It's an awesome team, Andreessen backed, also building a game called Pirate Nation, and they build on-chain like infrastructure. So I joined them. It was like honestly 2 months after the FTX crash, but I met the team and I saw the kind of the potential in the people, but in the ideas that they had as well. And I'd done my 2 years at Stripe, and I was like, well, this looks very like from what I could tell on the crypto landscape. I was like, this looks super bottomy. Like it hasn't all ended here, right? Everyone thought when FTX crashed, like it was completely Jover. ETH hit that sort of point of 800, right?
Yeah, it was brutal.
I think it had bounced. By the time I joined Proof of Play, it was like back to like 1200 or 1300. So like literally every friend and family, including colleagues at Stripe, were like, "You sure? Like you're gonna what?" Like,
You have to be a little bit like willing to like take some flack if you're gonna jump into this space. Like even today, even though it's like shifted, then even you had to be ready to like have some tomatoes thrown at you.
definitely, definitely. But also, my God, doesn't it feel good when you make that contrarian bet and it works out?
There's no better feeling in the world.
Totally. Like when I joined that team, Pirate Nation, yeah, I think it was very early. The game had been live like a couple of months, and the NFT collection as well there was an NFT collection out, but it wasn't like no one was talking about it. It was like 0.05 floor, and we had an awesome run over like the following 12 to 18 months, where that NFT collection became the highest market cap, a gaming market cap collection. It we did a token launch with day one Coinbase listing, all that good stuff. So I learned a great deal from the people and from the work I was doing there. And that's like, I think what just like really set me up well it was always my dream to like build my own game. Same with my co-founder. But yeah, I learned so much at Proof of Play that kind of set us up in a great spot to go out and do this, right? And to like fulfill that dream and like have a go building our own game.
Yeah, I think I've seen a lot of founders say that by having joined a team and like kind of had that I wouldn't say like have the roadmap laid out in front of you, but also being able to like build and watch and like understand like what works and what doesn't work has set them up for like such a greater opportunity at success or reduce the risk of failure by so much. I mean, the Proof of Play guys are Chad's huge fan of them and I'm bullish on what they're doing. So I mean, yeah, that was probably one of the best places you could have ended up to be building a game today. And then obviously the fact you're working with them still to power what you're doing is also kind of like a nod to how good they are and how, you know, they're kind of taking a lot of market share. I see more and more people integrating with them every day.
I mean, the tech is just awesome, right? Like, there's kind of a disconnect in crypto between attention or like mind share and actually like quality of the product. There are some teams who are just like really good at being like the cultural zeitgeist and being the thing everyone talks about, and having like a token that's really ripping. And there are other teams that are actually like just really fucking good builders and produce like really great products. And that's what that team has always been. I obviously had the joy and like it was an awesome role, right? Which is the go-to-market role, which is to like grow the game and set the narrative and like get eyeballs on the thing. And they recently hired ICO to go and do the same. So
incredible hire.
Awesome hire. I think a really strong fit there. And yeah, so I think their next leg will be really interesting. I'm certainly watching, seeing what moves that they make.
Yeah, we just kind of went over, when you made that transition, it was at this like bottom moment. I recently saw you tweet about how the Web3 gaming bottom is in, and a lot of people capitulated. A lot of people moved on. They said gaming's dead in Web3. It's not going to exist. Are you certain the gaming bottom is in? Does it feel like that? Should people like recognize that it's over? And where do you think we're headed in like the short term from where we are today for Web3 gaming?
So I don't know if you've seen this chart. It's definitely gone around on Twitter over the last year or two, which is the amount of funding, like venture funding deployed into gaming every quarter since there was like a crazy peak in 2021 or early 2022. And it's basically been down only ever since. So what happened in 2021, zero interest rate phenomena, a bunch of funds, like off the back of, there's some like good Web2 success stories, but there was definitely like, it's the Axie era, right?
Yeah.
And so shit went bananas. Like Axie went to what, 40 bill or something at the top. So even VCs who didn't really know much about gaming were like FOMOing in, writing insane checks, giving this team, that team 50 mil, 80 mil, really sort of like, undisciplined investing.
Yeah.
FOMO driven investing. So very clear in hindsight that was a massive bubble. And there was like a lot of teams who were not of particularly high quality and they raised a lot of money. And it's just taken time to like flush for the market to kind of like, kind of refresh, and those teams have run out of money or they made a bunch of mistakes or whatever. And as those mistakes have been accruing over the last few years, that's what led the community to become so jaded, right? Hey, these teams aren't fulfilling their promises. Or, oh, they went and raised a bunch of money, but it doesn't seem to make a difference in terms of the outcome. And so really over the last 6 months, we've seen so many Web3 or like crypto-enabled game studios shut down. There was a period, I think 2 or 3 months ago, where like within 1 week, there was like 7 or 8 studios all announced they were shutting shop. So that felt super bottomy then. But what I would say is that like on-chain gaming and GameFi or Web3 gaming, whatever you want to call it, it was always a leveraged bet on Ethereum. Like the reason it ripped so damn hard in 2021 was Ethereum, and that's what we're seeing now, right? Also circulating on the timeline, I did a shit post about it, but is the increase in the search term for crypto gaming.
Yeah.
And no one can really, I've not seen any like well-educated, I've not seen any like sophisticated takes breaking that down, what's actually happening or where it's coming from. But if I had to hazard a guess, I'll just say, well, it's because of Ethereum, right? The last like 3 to 4 weeks, ETH is fucking back. There's an infinite institutional bid coming in. Tom Lee is the new Michael Saylor.
Yep.
And so with ETH back, DeFi is back, GameFi is back, probably a bunch of other stuff as well. Like I'm also kind of like keeping an eye out to see like well, what's the new meta of this cycle? We've been in this sort of like revenue meta for a while. I think it's great. It makes total fucking sense to me. But at this point, we've been talking about revenue for like the last 3 to 6 months. There's going to be something new, especially if ETH pushes like new all-time highs. So I think it's just a really interesting period. And back to gaming, with ETH back, we're back. And you know, as I say, a bunch of old teams have been flushed out, and you know, we you know, with Gigaverse are taking a new approach on like a number of dimensions, and are just really excited about the position that we're in. We think we could do some awesome things this cycle.
Yeah, I mean, like, for those who are listening or gonna listen to the recording of this who might not know what Gigaverse is and what GLHFers are, could we high level quickly go through that, and let's dive into why Gigaverse should be on every single person's radar?
Yeah. So GLHFers, and yeah, I know, sort of awkward branding to enunciate there. It's funny because when I first came up with the name for that collection, one of my friends was like, I don't like it. And I was like, no, listen, it's actually a filter, because real gamers know GLHF, right?
Yep.
Like I grew up playing StarCraft, and that's like every match started with GLHF. And so if you know what it is, then you're my audience. And if you don't know, then you're not. But yeah, definitely awkward. I launched GLHF. I mean, I was still working at Proof of Play, and I launched it as like, hey, here's a PFP collection that I love. I was looking for a PFP that I had a very certain, like, you know, I had a certain aesthetic in mind,
right?
Sort of like retro nostalgia, sort of infused pixel gaming PFP. And I couldn't find one that existed. So I was like, oh, fuck it, I'll make it. It was very intentional at the outset, though, to say like, hey, this is basically an art collection or a culture collection. There's no utility here. Nothing's going to happen. Mint it if you like it. And so we minted out in January of last year, so like 18 months ago. And then the community was like forming. It was like small, and there wasn't a ton happening. We launched some, you know, we kind of had to go making some like early games on like Discord. We made a game on Telegram and Farcaster that we never released. The cool thing actually that we wanted to do was like have players on all of these platforms competing against each other in real time, like PvPing across the platforms. Anyway, the reason that we stopped messing around with those was some of them, namely Discord, had a very clunky UX with the chain. Like you know, if Discord had an embedded wallet, that would have been great, but it doesn't. So you have to like click out of Discord, sign a transaction somewhere. It's kind of shit. So anyway, that got us cooking on like, okay, we need to build a proper like on-chain game with like, you know, good wallet experience and so on. And that was the beginning of Gigaverse. We started working on it, I want to say like August, September last year. So yeah, almost a year ago. We were all, but the team were all doing other jobs. So it was kind of like a thing we were working on during the weekends. And then, yeah, like, so Gigaverse, we revealed properly in January this year. We launched it in February this year. And it's very nostalgic. Will kind of take you back to your childhood. Pixel-based RPG, starting as an RPG, but over time, the vision is to grow into a social MMO where, you know, you're seeing other players, you're able to do stuff with them. It's like co-op shit, PvP shit, and like ultimately build it into a like a Disneyland type experience where there's like many different kind of game modes or rides that you can participate in. They have different levels of complexity, skill requirement, budget, time requirement, and so on. So the many different ways that you can play the game and like specialize in the game. And yeah, as I say, it's gone extremely well so far. So much so that like when the game launched, that's when we were all like, oh shit, I guess like we gotta quit our jobs and do this thing.
I mean, that must have been the best feeling in the world to see that reaction and that many people show up at launch.
Yeah, I mean, it was awesome. I mean, especially since, I don't know if you know, if you were sort of like in the trading stuff or like in the builder communities and abstracts at launch, the first few weeks were like pretty rough. There was like a lot of FUD and it was one of those situations where like people pointed and laughed like, oh, you guys like we thought Abstract would be a lot better. But in hindsight, and I had said this at the time, that was the best fucking thing that could have happened for Abstract, because it formed an early community of actual builders. It wasn't like the top is in, or it's like overhyped from the get-go.
Yep.
And it just built, like, among that core community that formed, there's this like resilience and camaraderie. And so I think that's why, like, we're now seeing Abstract where it is now, where everyone's literally every other day I'm getting DMs from game founders wanting to come over to Abstract. That they're all feeling the FOMO.
Yeah.
But, where were you in the first few weeks, right?
Yeah, well, it's the culture of what's happening there. You want it to be real, organic, natural, not this blast. Like not to throw shade here, but like Blast was. It was so hyped up. There was such a high expectation. There was like everybody was showing up because of like the payday that they were expecting. Today, your average user, or I would say majority of your users on Abstract, are there because they're excited for like who's building there, what's happening there. It's good. It's a great place to be. And I definitely can see that it has been beneficial for both of you. A great working relationship for getting users, and as well as having users a great place to go and play on the chain.
100%. Like we formed our conviction late last year. We were doing our homework and we met the team. It was like November. And yeah, it was clear to us then, like, we spoke to everyone. We spoke to all these other chains, and to be honest, I like what some other chains are doing. I think they have their, good teams. They have their, like, they're kind of building their own culture and they're doing cool stuff. But for us, Abstract was the no-brainer fit, and it was just very refreshing for them to actually, like, you speak to many chains, you're like, all right, like, what are you guys doing, or what's your edge, or who are you building for, why should I deploy there? And you get this like fucking diatribe of pseudo philosophical dogmatic bullcrap about God knows what. Like, I love decentralization and the rest, but that's not the right message for, like, you're a bootstrap app builder who's like, I just want people to try my product, man, like, help me find users. And that's exactly what Abstract were saying. They were like, we're going to build an app store style experience. We're going to push traffic to great apps and games. And we are, we're really experienced, like, running communities. And we think we are fun marketers, and we'll do a bunch of, like, cool activations. I was like, all right, so you're going to help me get users. This is, like, the number one thing. If you go back to, like, the Web 2 world, if you go back to, like, if you just look at, like, Y Combinator and those, like, early stage startup incubators, it's like the number one thing, right? Get users, generate some traction. You're either going to get feedback or you're going to get revenue, or both. And from there you can build towards a real business. So yeah, I love that. And comparatively, there's, like, other awesome chains, as I say, but I just don't think they're as good or as clear on driving towards that objective.
Yeah. I it's fun. It's great because I found your website and I was reading through it last night. One thing that you mentioned on there is things happen in phases. Like, phases are good. Like, Abstract has gone through an early discovery phase, and, like, now they're on, like, phase 2 of that, which is this more kind of like, oh, there's a little bit more attention, and then they'll have that phase 3 of, like, mass marketing, mass adoption. And it seems like you guys at Gigaverse have also kind of, from you obviously being at the head of this, had phases. And I think that's often missed by not only, like, participants, but founders as well.
Definitely. The thing that excites me most as a builder is this, like, very intentional sequencing of catalysts and events and announcements and, like, unfolding of the story, that people can feel that momentum build, and you use that as kind of a moment to, like, drive growth, win some new attention, win some new liquidity, and so on. And we've done that, like, a number of times. The launch of Gigaverse itself. Post that, we launched, like, some features we made, like, a lot of noise about, like when we launched GigaJuice, which is, like, an in-game consumable. It's like a big launch of ours. There's been others as well. And yeah, we're gearing up. Like every team right now should be thinking about like what's that story that they're going to go to market with and start telling, and who are, how they're going to cut through the noise. And so, this is something we've been quietly working on a lot ourselves over the last few weeks. Very clear, like a month ago, that was the beginning of kind of this ETH run, right? So yeah, I mean, we're doing this right now, just gearing up for this this sort of next sequence.
Like as you go into your next sequence, I'm curious, like often you have to think like several sequences out, like as you think about like tokenomics or abs, kind of having that like token dangle effect, like what is like the longevity of your flywheel that you guys are building? I know you've talked to and shown a bunch of like different item syncs and stuff around that. Like what is the longevity of Gigaverse look like in your eyes down the road?
We think we can still be building this game in a decade, right? There's not in crypto, but in Web 2, a bunch of good examples of games which have gotten better and better and better over time, continuously growing, also have really strong retention mechanics. I think there is a fair perception that in crypto gaming, the shelf life of a game is so much shorter. But I would say that if you go and analyze any of those games that have had a short shelf life, there's usually like a number of very clear reasons why that's the case. The game sucked, or they completely failed or misled their community. They launched with like horrendous fucking tokenomics, or these guys like mismanaged their budget, or the founder's a moron. There's like a long list, and in many games cases, it's like a number of those things. Now, I'm not saying that we're humans too, my team and I. So we're not completely perfect. We're going to make mistakes of our own. But what we try really hard to do is not make the mistakes that others have already shown us. Like if you do this, like here's the outcome.
Right.
If you design a token, which is like the game currency, and you give it to like mercenary farmers, guess what's going to happen, right? So, I'm sure we'll make an entirely new set of mistakes, but, the best thing that we can do is recognize them very, very quickly, overcorrect where possible, and just run our business in a really smart way, which we've set ourselves out to do from day one, right? Our approach of like monetizing from the get-go, we've already built multiple years worth of runway just from our cash flow. And the game's only going to get better, and we're only going to have stronger monetization streams, and we're only going to grow the community from here. So I think we're in a really strong spot. And yeah, I think Gigaverse we're super passionate about. The IP is really strong. A lot of people tell me they look at the logo, the characters, the look and feel of the world, and they're like, yeah, I can see this. I can see this actually exists outside of crypto. This doesn't feel like some weird, super niche, you're on like the sort of fourth level subterranean sort of 4chan niche memes.
Yeah.
I actually think it has like much broader appeal, and there's no reason why we can't also build kind of like a periphery of apps and other bits of tech around Gigaverse.
You mentioned one thing in there that I want to highlight and maybe get you to like share some bits here, even for me, like selfishly wanting to know. I feel like I do this almost every stream, but community, you guys have one of the most feverish community that are diehard fans. You've grown such a massive community. What's the secret? What's your secret framework for building such amazing community?
I don't know if it's secret, man. I look at other great community builders, and there's like a set of first principles, right? I think in Abstract's neck of the woods, like the gold standard is Luca, right? Luca and Pudgy Penguins, always done right by their community, always have like turned up, worked really hard, even if prices are down, sentiment's down, the guy's still working really hard.
Yep.
He's never done dumb shit like dilute his holders, or like launch some like super massive extractive mint that results in like a blow off top for the entire market. So he's operated with I think he's kind of like leading the playbook. So I share a bunch of the same first principles there. One recent example is, for example, when we launched Gigaverse, the ROMs on Abstract were a free airdrop to everyone that had a GLHF in their wallet, right? And it was a one-to-one airdrop, and we factored in rarity. If you had a one-of-one GLHF, then you got like the most rare Gigaverse ROM tier. If you had females are rare in the collection, so if you held a female, then you also got a rare Gigaverse ROM. There's just like obvious things like that, like trying to like look after people, listening to feedback. Team and I are like in Discord pretty much every day, with the community, playing the game and responding to feedback, and just try to use a Stripe analogy. What we'd say at Stripe is like you stay close to the turpentine, and the analogy there was like, so Stripe's best customers all started as startups using Stripe. So they would sign up, for example, DoorDash, when DoorDash was like still in Y Combinator and had like 3 employees and no revenue. But Stripe would get them on board their payment system. And then lo and behold, DoorDash is now like a massive company, publicly listed, doing all this volume in payments, and have stayed with Stripe, grown up all along the way. And staying close to the turpentine for Stripe means like the analogy is with artists or painters, right? Where if you wanted to meet with other artists and painters, the way that you would do that is you'd actually go to like where they'd all collect their art supplies from, right? The turpentine. So in the startup context, stay close to the turpentine is just like, listen to what your customers want, be where they are, and so on. And I think the best community builders do that as well, right? You have to really understand at every given point the sentiment, what they're looking forward to, what their concerns are, other stuff that they're interested in as well. Like it actually is useful to know like what other shit's catching their eye and what other narratives out there like really excites them. So just stay close to the turpentine.
It's amazing the effect of giving a fuck has on your business. Like when you actually care about your customers, your users, and not just your profit, like that has such a massive effect. I don't know why that's like a eureka moment for some people, but here we are. Like it needs to be highlighted. You even said like, I love if you haven't checked out this guy's site, it is I don't know what the URL is off the top of my head, but your site with some of the things you've written is fantastic. You said that it's important to have EQ. EQ is important. And I think
I need to update that. I need to update that site actually. That just has a bunch of links to stuff I've written, right?
Yeah, but it's so like, that's such a fire thing that I think people overlook is EQ matters so much for founders, and if you're building communities and user bases.
100%. I see some amazing like technical founders in the space who have these like incredible like dev skills, but they no EQ, and so like it's just hard for them to like build that human connection, be relatable, like to have empathy for like what this person's probably feeling. Whereas, I mean, I've always had this like spidey sense of like being able to put myself in someone's shoes and be like, oh, they're probably like concerned about this, or they're probably insecure about that, or they're probably wondering like, this piece over here is like unclear. So being able to like relate to your audience and empathize is like, it's a massive superpower in crypto.
It is a superpower. Yeah, and I definitely get that from you guys. I definitely get that from like I'm lucky to have like in my Discord community like people who just they love the game. They feel like they're seen and heard. It shows. You can tell. If the founding team cares.
Yeah, I agree. And it goes back to that point I made earlier, right? Like it helps so much when you participate in the market, you buy tokens or you buy NFTs, and you are yourself part of these communities. Because then you can see firsthand what the good experience or the bad experience is like. Same for like these founders that go on to build their own startup later in life, like if you've been working for others along the way, that's like it's hugely beneficial, because you'll have firsthand experience of like, yeah, if you've worked in a great startup with a great leader, what does that look like? Or if you worked in a shitty one with a horrible leader, what does that feel like?
Right.
You just got to like just be a sponge throughout that, as you learn from others.
What have you found that, like, by listening and like talking to your communities like so much, like what have you found to be the like part of like your golden like North Star going forward for what you provide to them?
I think the reality is there's like so many great games out there, right? It's like one of the most competitive product categories in the world, where nowadays, you even have like indie devs leveraging AI to like spin up some cool game in a matter of hours. You have also just really goated classical indie devs who can, make a great game themselves over a few weeks or months. And then you have these like massive AAA studios that are like cranking out. I mean, look, we're gonna have like Battlefield. The new Battlefield looks insane. New GTA looks insane. So that's like what you're competing against, right? And so if you're being honest, like the reason anyone playing these crypto games, it's not because like, oh, this is like a much better experience than like Battlefield or Call of Duty or League of Legends or any of these guys, right? It's like kind of a combination of other things. There's an opportunity for them to speculate within the game. There's like speculation games within the game. I talk a lot about this, like games within the game. So there's different ways that you can play the game. There's different like arbitrage opportunities. There's different ways that you can speculate. Having an item economy, I think, is like one of the most tried and tested ways of doing that. We've had this fun challenge where we've had to like try to catch up and build the utility for all these items that we have in the game, and we're getting there. It's just taken a bit of time. One of the things we did recently to like slap a massive piece of duct tape just over the leaky water tank is the stub system, right? Where like, hey, now like there's a reason to collect these items where there's like daily and weekly deals to turn them in. Anyway, so there's this, let people play the game that they want. They want to play speculation games, so design accordingly. And then recognize like everything that happens around the periphery of the game is like meta game as well. So we have a community of builders who are building like really cool third-party tools, auto battlers, and like resource sites and wikis, and like figuring out like the best efficiency. How can you min-max your like energy in the game? And there's like so many analogies that like people like. For me, it's like computer hardware. Growing up, I used to always love like overclocking my processor and graphics card. That was my like min-maxing. Some dudes love doing that with cars or whatever, and other examples. So this is like periphery of meta games, what the builders are doing, the community in Discord, the Twitter memes. We try to play into this where we'll like tease one feature as if it's coming soon, and then we'll actually release this other thing that's like kind of unexpected. And then we'll come back to the other thing that we teased before when you've like forgotten about it. So we simply try to like build the game that we know these folks like, because we like them too, and that's why we're here, and that's why we would spend time on a crypto game versus like Battlefield.
Right. Yeah. I could see that the flywheel of like what keeps people engaged. And that speculation side is so core to like Web3 gaming. I feel like it's a good thing and a bad thing sometimes, but like I think it is ultimately a good thing.
The point I make all the time about speculation is just like, speculation is like the oldest game we humans have. People sit around and speculate, oh, you have a friend who's, fuck knows, cheating on their wife, right? And suddenly you find like you've spent half an hour or an hour like discussing the scenario, like with your friends. Or what's happening in the game tonight, right? And people placing bets and predictions. Or like we are always speculating about everything in life, knowingly or unknowingly. It's what we like to do, and it's never going to stop. The other point I would make is that like prediction markets are perps and perps are prediction markets, right? So speculation is like one of the strongest PMFs that we have in crypto, and it doesn't need to be this like very it doesn't, there doesn't need to be a stigma about it. Like, oh, that means we're all like degenerate gamblers, or like this is bad. This is a habit. This is like why people are not. No, this is human fucking nature. So you just got to give people what they want. What I like about Gigaverse is like the game is expansive enough, and we have enough levers within it to make some parts of speculation be very light and actually non-economical, and other parts of speculation can actually be like economical and like, okay, there's like this arbitrage or people actually spending in the marketplace or whatever. But we can cover like various spectrums of speculation where you don't necessarily have to be like a massive like hyperliquid whale to participate in these levels of speculation.
I see that. Yeah, I feel like that also kind of plays into, you guys have a good flywheel with like abstract XP. You have a good flywheel with like new item sinks, etc. Like long term, there will always be like, there are like phases and things that you can play throughout that keep people again coming back engaged, able to speculate in different areas. You're able to drive people in different ways. Definitely comes from like a long-term vision instead of here's token, thank you for the liquidity event.
Yeah, definitely. And I really like tokens. I spend a lot of time. Still trade when I can. Now it's easier, that I'm in like hardcore build mode. It's easier for me to sit in like really long-term holds, but I still trade when I can. I'm always studying like the design or the moves, design of a token or the moves that other teams make. And if I had to say one thing about how gaming tokens what we've seen in gaming tokens over the last few years, it's just like 99% of them look exactly the goddamn same. Since 2021, they've been designed the same way, they've been distributed in the same way, like mechanically same thing, and that's why like 99% of those charts look the same. So one of the things that excites me most about, and why why I set up GLHF to begin with, is it's kind of like a sandbox for us to try cool new shit. Like when we launched these PFPs, one of the things that we did, I'll call out two things we did differently. One was how we ran the whitelist. We actually did this like programmatic whitelisting method where we built our own bot and our own flow to like determine, without making people jump through hoops or enter raffles or whatever. We just like looked at a bunch of criteria and we determined, yep, you're getting whitelisted, or no, sorry, you're not. And then when the collection minted out, we surprised everyone. It was like, hey, actually, we haven't fully minted out. There's 120 pieces left to mint, but they're all going to be one of ones, and they're all going to be auctioned very slowly over time. They're all part of the core collection. They'll all get minted to the core collection, and all of these one-of-one characters will have like some cool sort of ability. And so I'd never seen anyone do something like that. But the reason that I thought it was like an interesting model was, as the collection grows over time and you bring in sort of like bigger collectors who are more like interested in these kind of like prestige pieces, you can generate additional revenue this way. Firstly, you kind of like reveal like a cool new character, this dope new piece of art, and you generate additional revenue without having to dilute the collection, because we've seen so many NFT collections do that mistake. They like launch this massive secondary like PFP
collection, and it's another 10,000. It's like
exactly.
You've just pulled all this capital off your holders' hands, but what has the net effect of that been for the game experience, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so going back to your question about the tokens there, so the thing I love most about how we've set ourselves up is that we're creatively very free, and like the internal culture from the beginning has always been like, let's actually be brave enough to do some cool new thing. You always are like having to put yourself out there and risk failure, but the beautiful thing about crypto is that typically rewards teams that are brave enough to do something new, right? And if you really smash it out of the fucking park, then you get to be a meta starter and a category leader. So I love that about the way that we're building, and it kind of applies to everything. I wouldn't say just to like how we think about tokens.
Right. Who do you think is not doing the copy paste token format right now that you're looking at and saying, oh, like they're like we're looking at that and feeling some inspiration from it, or that's a good way to, zig when others are zagging.
Yeah, so I think it's not a super recent example, but the launch of Hyperliquid's execution to me has just been like the absolute. This is like the golden case study. Everything from how they actually launched a really good product, built community in the early days. They did the per drop kind of like, the sort of dress rehearsal there. The way that the little details of how they executed the Hyperliquid airdrop, and just the simplicity of the message, like, hey, we are super long term aligned with you guys, the community, and we believe to an infinite extent in our own token. And so we're going to use like almost all of the fees we generate to buy back our own token. It's just like the simplest, strongest thing that we've ever seen. And like fundamentally, why does it work? They have a good product that generates money, and they believe in the long-term value of their tokens. So they're not afraid to bid it. So it's so simple that I see people on both sides of the bell curve loving that. I mean, even I think the mid curvers love it.
They do.
The thing to call out about Hyperliquid is like they really are a unicorn in that the team are extremely capable, extremely well financed, self-financed. So like all the stars really aligned. But the reason that it's so helpful is like, okay, that's probably maybe like the best we'll see. It sets a benchmark for everyone else, right? And also is like a driving factor for you to be like, all right, well, that's what like the best of the best fucking looks like. We can't emulate that. We're not sat here on, we haven't got personal war chests worth like tens and hundreds of millions. So, okay, then what? Well, you have to find another way. So that's how I think about it, right? There'll only ever be one Hyperliquid. That's their thing. So you treat that as a forcing function to be creative and think about how you can play to your own strengths.
Yep. I do you like, as you guys look at that though, do you like pull that out like certain pieces from there and you're like, oh, like we're like you're actively thinking of that as you're like building out your future? Because I think the future of like what you guys and the direction over the next, like you said, could be building for 10 years here, um, does require that same like giga bullishness of, okay, whether it's items, XP, or a token, that longevity flywheel is there.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a couple of. I would also say there's like a couple of other things, right? Like fundamentally, if we, the team, really love working with one another and just feel like super energized and that we're having fun and that we're not having the sort of like bloat and bureaucracy and politics that like bigger companies or like less aligned teams have, then over a long enough time, if we're putting in the work and we're like 8 or 9 times out of 10 making the right calls, then we'll win, right? It's just a matter of like how hard and how soon we're going to win.
Yeah.
So like fundamentally on a first principles basis, this is why I'm so confident in what we're doing. It's not even about the metrics right now. I think the metrics are great, but if I look on a first principles basis, I've definitely built startups where I just didn't have this feeling. I didn't have this confidence in the team, or I just didn't have this excitement in the product. But yeah, there's just this intangible, the scene in like Top Gun where like Maverick just like when he engages in a fight, you can just like feel, is this good or not, right? And
Yeah.
And he knows that if he engages, he's just going to kill it. And there's just that kind of feeling that I have when I'm building. So yeah, I mean that feeling has been strong throughout.
I think that's a real thing. I think I can echo that as having built many different things and been on like founding teams. Like you really can tell if something is like where on the risk scale and the performance scale you are. And when you know it's right after, because you also have to have taken some like punches across the face and seen failures and experienced failures to know like it's a pattern recognition thing. And when you
Totally.
find that anomaly moment in that team, the setup and the market and everything, you're just like, holy shit, like this is it. Um, I it's a true thing. I think if you haven't felt it before, or you're not a builder, like you're like rolling your eyes at that. Like, no, it is. I can vouch for that to the highest extent that it is a real thing.
Totally. And that's the value of like, is the value of failing or working shitty jobs or working for shitty bosses or working in dysfunctional teams or whatever. That's conditioning, right? It's like when I was younger, I used to train martial arts, and because I was living in London, we had a pretty hardcore Sifu who was like, the conditioning that we did was insane. Like, but the reason for that was like, okay, if any of us ever got into a real fight, like nothing could possibly be worse than the training. And so I think there's so much value in seeing what doesn't work or what hurts or failing and just feeling that. I would always rather personally invest in founders who've tried a few times and failed, and also know themselves, know what they're not good at, know what they don't like, than the completely sort of like, I mean, look, every now and then you hear the Goldilocks YC story of some 18-year-old kid who's now a fucking gorillionaire because he got everything right. But for the most part, if you actually look at the data of successful founders, these are dudes in their 40s and 50s who have the fucking battle scars and who know themselves and know what they're good at, not good at. And to your point, yeah, can just feel it in the moment if the ingredients are there in the team and the opportunity or not.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's such a fire point. Yeah, I think it's also like an encouraging thing to tell people, like, if you haven't touched or built something and you want to, like, just start as well, because you know it might not work out the first time, but you have a data point, you have all this experience, you have things to go off of as you move down. Like, did you come on here and you've talked about, you know, it's a again, phases. You start at Stripe, you were very entrepreneurial, then you ended up at Proof of Play, and now here, all of that is cute. Like, it's additive to where you are today, and it puts, you know, Gigaverse in a better position than it could have been if this was just your first idea.
Yeah, 100%. Grateful for all the experiences, as I say, like the good, the bad, and the ugly. I've mostly spoken to you about like the good stuff. Fortunately, you know, the recent years has been all the good stuff, but like, yeah, earlier in career and life, like, yeah, that's definitely was like some shit. Yeah, it's all very, very valuable.
Yeah. Yeah, the low points don't get talked about because it's not sexy, it's not cool, but I mean, it's one area, like, when people ask me about, I'm like always happy to be like, I think the humbleness of like being able to admit when you've had an L is could not be understated for how valuable it is. Like, there are a lot of people that like try to hide that and they try to like ignore it and they like, I never want to feel that again. Like, sure, you never want to feel that again, but like, can you actually take it to the heart and the mind of like why that was bad, and grow from it? That's the goated way to react.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. We just hired an engineer in the team who was reflecting with my co-founder, like, why do we really want this person in the team? And it's like, well, first and foremost, anytime that they hear an idea, they immediately start thinking about like how they want to make it work, right? They're kind of like curious and optimistic by nature, very proactive. There's some people who like they find a reason. There's like an excuse or a reason why something wouldn't, like they can always find a reason why something wouldn't work, right? Definitely come across those people. But so that part of his nature, super appealing. And the second is that from a developer perspective, especially in a startup, you see a lot of people who are like, they put themselves in a box, like, oh, I'm really good at like X, but I don't do Y or Z.
Right.
But in a startup, you need people who are like, yeah, I'm really good at X, but I give fucking Y and Z a go any day of the week. In fact, really fun opportunity to grow if you tell me we need to do Y or Z, right?
Yep.
So yeah, that goes a long way with us, and obviously he's the most recent example, but it's actually the same for the rest of the team.
Yeah. No, the team seems goated. It seems like you guys also have a very good sense for like hiring and getting the right people in, A+ players that, I mean, back to the fundamentals you learned at Stripe. You want people that are good at what they do, and you can fill in the cracks of what they need to know to play in the universe that you're building in.
Super happy. Like, so with the team, almost everyone that we have on board was like very, very organic how we met them. Like I think almost everyone like started as a community member.
Oh wow.
And so like knew the collection, like kind of loved what we were doing. And yeah, and a bunch of our team also were like, they basically began doing the job before that was offered to them. And so you know, we feel fortunate in that respect too. Yeah, I think we're lucky. Like we've got an amazing community, and then the team members that we've been able to bring on board are just absolute gems.
Oh man, again, there's so much stuff here to be excited about. I'm curious, real quick, you know, as we're wrapping up here, outside of your day to day, you know, Gigaverse, etc., like anything in the market that has you excited, has your attention, while you're not obviously, you know, shoulders deep in Gigaverse world.
I mean, the problem that I have right now, being the sort of hyperliquid bull that I am, I
I
compare
can tell.
everything. Yeah, kind of compare everything to like, oh, should I just like buy more hype? There's been times in the past where I've been kind of a lot more diversified than I currently am. I think the market is going to reach this point basically now. Like ETH is so fucking back, so there's going to be all kinds of cool things to, teams making new bets, launching new products, new teams arriving in the space that are worth paying attention to. And I want to make more bets, so I'm keeping my eyes peeled. There's one team that I'm advising called Super Gaming. And they're an awesome company. They've been building for 10 years. They're bringing their games on chain, and they're doing a mint in a couple of days that I am helping with as an advisor. So, of course, I'm heavily biased here, but got my eyes very close on that one, and I'm helping them with this Genesis mint of theirs. And as I come across other interesting stuff, I'm sure I'll be tweeting it out when I see it.
Of course, you're always sharing, which I love. I think it's important to have a founder who's, you know, again, you see so much, you have so much experience, you're kind of in the weeds, you're getting this user feedback. That narrative, that like your commentary on a lot of this stuff carries weight, and it's also a good it's a good indicator. It's good to have someone who's actively understanding the entire market scope instead of just, you know, I only do my game, I only build in my company. You have a taste for what's happening.
I actually think there's a ton you can learn from like non-games, right? Like, yes, always like, you know, be playing other people's games and learning from them too, but you get some like awesome ideas from like, you think like parallel thinking from like another app. It could be DeFi, it could be RWAs or whatever.
Yep.
So yeah, super valuable.
Do you have anything as we close it out here? Any teasers, tidbits for the community that you want to throw out there for them? Or are you sealed lips right now?
I think it's what I was kind of saying earlier. Like we've been heads down getting a sequence, like a very intentional sequence of things ready on the like on the product side and like stuff kind of around our ecosystem. So yeah, we're expecting it to be like a fun few weeks. There's something that we're really close to putting out. I don't know if it's going to be today or tomorrow, but that kind of like kicks off like a sequence of things. And yeah, we think the next few weeks will be fun. So anyone who's not playing Gigaverse yet, it's a fucking amazing time to get on board. And if you are already playing, then like strap in because we're about to take things to the next level.
Today, starting today or tomorrow.
Yeah. And we start layering from here.
Oh, I can't wait, man. I'm excited for you. I'm as always, I really like to support people that I think are not just making cookie cutter products, who have the experience, they have the team, and you know, again, not to be like just here glazing founders on the stream every week, but I am very, very excited and bullish for what you're doing. And I know the community is excited as well. Dith, I can't thank you enough for making the time to hop on and chat with me. If you guys aren't already, most of you are, make sure you're following him on Twitter at 0xDith, or be following Play Gigaverse as well. I'm so bullish. I'm so excited, man. Thank you so much.
No, thank you, brother. Really appreciate you. And yeah, awesome questions, awesome energy.
Thank you. Thank you so much, man. Guys, thank you for tuning in to another talk with a founder. We'll be back tomorrow. And if you haven't already, make sure you go check out the stream sponsor, loot.gg. You can find them on Twitter at just LUTE. Excited for what they have coming up here as